Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Kocharhook, and this evening we're going to be talking about small businesses. Our economy has had some challenges over the last 18 months, and a lot of people who either own a business, or if you know someone that owns a business, or you work for a small business, you may have seen that there have been some difficulties, right? So a lot of people have actually taken hits. And so what we're looking at to discuss today is what can a business owner do in order to find the working capital that he or she may need in order to get through these tough economic times and help their business grow. And to discuss that with me, I have three fantastic people who have joined me tonight, and I really appreciate you guys being here. Immediately to my left is Happy Dalig, who is with Opportunity Fund, Mark Feathers, who's with Small Business Capital, and Dale Marie Golden, who's with Alta Alliance Bank. So folks, really appreciate your coming here to join me this evening, and I think we're going to have a good conversation tonight.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So let's start with getting a little bit of a feel for the kinds of things that you do. Happy, I want to ask you a question first, because you and I had met each other, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, and you're with an organization, it's a nonprofit organization called Opportunity Fund.
Right.
So can you give me just a smidgen of what that means for a small business person?
Definitely. So Opportunity Fund is a nonprofit private lender. What we do is we provide access to capital for entrepreneurs looking to reinvest in their business, but for some reason they just don't qualify for a traditional bank loan, or they don't have cash in the bank to be able to pay for these different things. So if, let's say, a construction worker is looking for a new piece of equipment or a new tool that's going to help him or her become more efficient at what they do, or provide a new service to their clients, that's something that's going to become, money for them in the bank later on.
Exactly.
The kind of investment that we want to be able to help entrepreneurs with.
Okay, and the size of these kinds of things, you were mentioning to me before the show that the size of the funds that you're able to offer can be, pretty nominal. I mean,
right.
Sometimes to get a business going, if you can get $1,000, it makes a big difference.
Exactly.
So you guys, would you classify this as micro-lending in any way, shape, or form?
We would. I think that a lot of people have heard the term microfinance or micro-lending thrown around a lot, but a lot of people think of this as something that's done in like a third world country. But really, it's really just small loans that are going out to entrepreneurs, people that need just, like you said, a nominal amount of money to make this investment into their business.
Got it. Okay.
So we go as low as 500, but go all the way up to 100,000, which is pretty small loan for some of the large businesses that need money.
All things considered, yeah. I mean, for a small business, $100,000 is a tremendous amount of money.
Exactly.
But if you're IBM or somebody, $100,000 that's not even a rounding error. That's below a rounding error.
Right.
Okay. Dale Marie, I want to ask you a question now and come over to discuss some of the things that you do, because you're with Alta Alliance Bank, which is considered a community bank. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And so, what does it really mean to be a community bank, and how does that impact things for a small business?
Well, people look at it as a community bank in terms of size and geographic scope. And we, as a small community bank, means that we're just in California. We happen to have 3 branches, but most community banks maybe have 1, could have 14, but it means they're dealing right in the community where they work, they give back. And the exciting thing with lending is that, unlike some of the bigger banks, we will look at what's happening in our area. So we tend to know what's going on in the business world, and rather than trying to have things fit inside a box, the people that actually do or make the decisions on the loans are right there in the community, and they know what's going on. So it makes a big difference.
As opposed to if you're like a national bank and one of the big multinationals or national bank that has the word decisions are not made locally. So decisions are made right there where.
Absolutely.
And I guess that can be important. So now, do the standards of qualification differ in any way, shape, or form for a community bank than a larger bank? I suspect not really.
That's a very good question, because there are a lot of things that indeed, and especially since with this whole situation with credit now, I feel the paradigm has really shifted, that people really need to look at their bottom line, maybe even start for small entrepreneurs, stop writing everything off, maybe think about showing a profit. But the biggest difference I feel is not necessarily what we require, like simple things like tax returns. That's going to be the same whether it's a large bank or a small bank. But again, we're looking at the relationship, we're looking at the area, we're looking at, again, because we know our community.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. And Mark, I want to come to you now. And Mark, your company is called Small Business Capital.
That's
right?
correct, Dave.
And you have a lot of interactions, I understand it, with the SBA, the Small Business Administration.
That's correct.
And the SBA is a place that people, business owners think about very early in the process. I think that, gee, if I'm starting a business, maybe I can go to the SBA, because they're there ostensibly to help get small businesses started. I mean, they talk about how that's at the core of the engine of the economy is small entrepreneurial companies. So what exactly in today's economy is the SBA able to do, and how does that tie into the sort of things that you might be able to assist a small business person with?
Okay. Well, Dave, the SBA is a great resource for business owners, small business owners. The majority of businesses in this country do qualify as small businesses. In the last year, the SBA has most of its fees waived for small businesses that are looking for financing, which is an incredible savings of working capital, and it provides long-term financing for business owners as well. So as where a community bank might offer a 5-year term on a business loan for equipment or for working capital with an SBA guarantee, that same bank may look to provide up to a 10-year term to that business.
And that would then reduce what their monthly payments are, and makes it a little more able for them to manage that thing. And you said something interesting there that I think was important. At least to me, it was relevant, and that was might be for working capital or for equipment. Because I know a lot of people go to the SBA to see if they can get a loan to buy property and stuff. They want to get the building that they're going to run their business in, and I guess they would need to talk to a community bank as well. But the SBA isn't just for that. It's not just for buying property. It's actually, if you need $500,000 or $100,000 or $500,000 to actually complete the development of your product, you may be able to qualify depending upon.
That's correct. The
circumstances.
The SBA lending program is probably the most versatile lending program in the country for community banks and for non-bank lenders like my own company. With this guaranteed financing, we're able to assist businesses with working capital, with long-term financing for machinery and equipment, for real estate finance, for paying off existing debt. It's a very flexible lending tool. And nationwide, typically, we'll see about $20 billion in financing provided to small businesses.
Really?
Tens of thousands.
That's pretty darn. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So let's talk about money right now, because one of the things that I've seen going on is, what was it, about was a year and a half ago now that Congress passed this bill to the stimulus package, and there were these many gazillions of dollars or multi-billions of dollars that was supposed to get back into the economy to get programs started. They call them shovel-ready programs to start stimulating the economy. And the thought was a tremendous amount of funds would trickle down to the small business sector. We haven't really seen that happen, have we? So what's why might that be the case, and what can a small business person do? Dale, I'm going to go over to you and start with that question for you.
Well, no, we certainly haven't seen the money, and a lot of clients are coming in and thinking that the community banks have a magic bullet, and it really hasn't happened yet, and that's part of the problem, and that's why there is such a demand for the three of us to provide different ways of financing, because we haven't seen that money come in.
So, do you collaborate with others? I mean, would you call happy if there was a situation that you couldn't actually provide a solution for, or check with Mark and that sort of thing?
I think that's the difference with a community bank, is that it's really based on relationship. Mm-hmm. So this is my client, and if I can't help my client, I'm going to find someone who can. So absolutely, in the green room, we actually were exchanging some leads. So again, because we care about the person, and if I can't help it and I give it to someone else, that also keeps the client with us,
right,
because they know we really do care about their success, and it makes a big difference.
Got it. So Happy, tell me a little bit more about the things that for Opportunity Fund monies, what does a business owner need to be able to do for qualifications? Is it pretty much the same as it would be if you were going to get a loan from a bank?
I think it's a great question. A lot of people, first of all, don't even know that we exist. And so a lot of leads will come into us from bank partners that we might have, other community partners that we might have. So if a client is coming to us, what they need to know is that it is a loan that they're going to get. We are a nonprofit organization, but unfortunately we don't have free money. So it is definitely a loan. And so what we'll have to do is we'll have to evaluate the business and also evaluate the financials of the entrepreneur that's providing the loan information or wants the loan for their business. Because one of the things that we want to do is help the client, right?
Sure.
We don't want to put them into a difficult financial situation. So we want to make sure that they have the cash flow to be able to support a monthly loan payment. And also that if they're looking for a loan, whatever size it is, that whatever they're going to get with the loan is actually going to help their business, and it's going to help them become more profitable and to build their business assets in the end.
So you're interested in what they're going to use the money for, as well as how much that they're trying to
Exactly.
get.
So the loan, again, back to loan use, it can't be something for personal needs. It can't be refinancing old debt. It has to go towards the growth of their business, the development of their business assets, and profitability in the end. Another thing that we have in addition to the loan money is that we have built into the whole process business advising. We want to set these entrepreneurs up to be successful in the end. So part of the application process is that they meet with the business consultant, they talk to them about their business, they talk to them about the loan use, they talk to them about the financials, and we do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths and the weaknesses of this business? How can we help you become more effective as an entrepreneur and become more successful in the end?
Got it. Well, that's good, because there's a lot of small business owners that fly by the seat of their pants.
Right.
And they fly into the mountain, and crash and burn. So, Mark, I want to ask you a question about this, because as an owner of a business, if you're going to be looking at possibilities for a potential client, small business owner, given the fact that some of these businesses have taken a hit in the last year to 18 months, and so their credit rating is down and their books are a little cockeyed and stuff like that, what can you consult them regarding how should they move forward? What do they need to do to be able to qualify for an SBA or any other kind of a loan?
Well, Dave, typically we like to see that there's a tangible piece of collateral securing our loans, and much like banks do, whether that's equipment or whether that's real estate. For us, we occupy a special niche in that we're working primarily with business owners who own their own property. These business owners oftentimes have been at their same location for 20 or 30 years, maybe as few as 5 or 10. But by buying their commercial real estate, they have in effect kind of created their own bank. And so they've been able to build up the equity in that property over time. And so in times of need, such as the Great Recession of the last couple of years, they'll come to a company like mine and they'll be looking for working capital to perhaps grow their inventory or to take on a new employee, and they want to be able to afford that payroll expense. And so we're able to take a look at the property that they have. We underwrite much like banks do as well. We'll look at credit reports, we'll look at what their personal monthly expenditures are for their home, for their cars, for tuition, things like that. But anyways, we'll look at the collateral that is going to provide support for our loan, and we'll underwrite to the business's revenues, to its expenses, and we'll look at the ratios now and what they would look like after the property is refinanced. Ideally, when our client comes to us, they're going to have some equity that lets us provide working capital against the equity in their property. So after a loan from us, they may start with $50,000 in working capital in a business checking account and end up with $150,000, which lets them go on to whatever their desired goal is for the business.
So they can build the thing. That's great. All right, I'm going to throw out a question to you guys that's I think is a little tougher now, because one of the things that I've observed because of the recession is that there are a lot of people who were working for larger companies that no longer have those positions, but who have this bright idea or who want to get into a business and have started some kind of a business. Now, if you're starting a business from scratch, you don't have the multiple months or years of profitability. You don't have equity potentially built in unless you own your home and maybe you're trying to leverage your home. So And there's a lot of people like this right now, which is one of the interesting things about this economic turmoil, is it has stimulated a lot of really new business growth. So what do you do for somebody like that? I mean, can Alta Alliance or any other community bank actually offer some kind of something for someone who's in that position to be able to get their business jump-started?
Well, it goes back to relationship. If the client has a relationship with the community bank, a positive relationship, they've been, let's say, stable in the community, it's best if they're doing something like what they were doing in the corporate world. So a lot of times what's happened is they are now consulting, but they're doing the same skill. If they've done it at least 3 years before that, we consider that. And again, that's the difference of dealing with a community bank, because it doesn't have to fit always inside the box. My experience with the bigger banks is that they're just strictly looking at the credit, the length of business, and most lending institutions like to see at least 3 years in that field, and also 3 years of profitability. Well, that's pretty hard if you've just started, but if you've been doing the same type of thing, then we're going to be a little bit more lenient about that.
That doesn't necessarily mean they'll get what they're asking for, but
Correct.
but there's a chance there.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you had told me before the show that you had worked for a large bank for some number of years, and I'm getting from the way you're saying this that you've experienced a significant difference in the way that the large bank versus a community bank addresses their customers and what they might be able to do for that customer. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. I mean, you almost become the advocate for that small business, so that when I give a loan package to my underwriters, I will let them know my relationship with the client. Maybe I banked them 10 years at another bank. So that shows some stability, that I do know this client. I actually speak for the client's integrity. Whereas at a big bank, of course they want that, but that's not a part of the loan package.
Right, it's not part of the analysis.
It's not part of the numbers.
And I think that's the key thing. It's the question of, do I just look at the numbers, or am I looking at not just the numbers, but the individual and stuff like that? I flash back to What a Wonderful Life, and George Bailey, okay, and Bailey Building and Loan. It's like, who is this person? How long has he been in the community? What difference does that make in being able to make a decision? And what you're telling me is that from a community bank perspective, that actually does have some weight in the picture.
Absolutely. It's like the old-fashioned banking, where it used to be done with the handshake, but it's because you knew that person, you knew their parents, perhaps, their children.
Right.
It makes a difference.
Great. So, Mark, I'm going to move that same question over to you. You've got somebody who's starting up. What can they do? Is there anything from an SBA lending kind of perspective that actually is possible for someone who's just starting a business?
Well, SBA is a great resource for startup businesses, starting with the Service Corps of Retired Executives, which is staffed by people who have many decades of experience in industry, private industry, public industry. And by going to sba.gov, you can find your local district office and the great resource of the Service Corps of Retired Executives. And so they will help a new business owner, with projections, with sort of rigor testing their business plan, feasibility analysis. There's quite a bit of volunteer work that they would provide on behalf of a business owner. There'll be a little bit of just testing, of the idea and the business owner's resolve, and some real-world validation from these very experienced individuals on the feasibility of the business plan. And ultimately, the failure rate, of course, for small businesses, startup businesses, is very high.
Sure.
The key variable is just the planning, the analysis of the initial working capital levels. And Happy certainly is a great resource with Opportunity Fund as well to test a business plan. And when a business owner starts out, you're going to be able to measure how much money they have in the bank, business checking accounts, what lines of credit they may have established, and you'll be able to factor in projected revenues, projected expenses, and what's left, and will there be a deficit, and how long will that go on for. And it's just very important to work with somebody who's an objective third party to assist with that process.
So if a new business owner has gone through that kind of rigor and done that analysis and really done a business plan and got some feedback from people who've been down that path before, etc., does that give them does that increase their possibilities of being able to get something through the SBA from a loan perspective?
It definitely does. SBA has some great programs for loans of less than $50,000. They increase the percentage of the guarantee that they will provide to the source that provides that loan to the individual. And so they have great libraries online to assist with the business plan. They've got great counselors. And so as a business owner, if you want to enhance your chances of getting approved for a loan working with somebody like Dale or Happy, you would want to certainly demonstrate that you have additional outside support. Perhaps you've saved up a lot of money and that's going to meet your living needs for a year or two. Mm-hmm. Perhaps you have a spouse that has a W-2 wage income type job as well. And so if you can show to the lending source that you're taking care of whatever you need for your personal living expenses, mm-hmm. that means for that banker that your chances of success are all the higher because you will be able to use that working capital you have created from revenues and put it back into the business.
Got it. Good. Thank you. So Happy, I got to move that same question over to you now.
Sure.
And that is, when you're talking about somebody that's just starting a business, mm-hmm. What can the Opportunity Fund help them with?
So for Opportunity Fund, we actually require that you have at least 12 months of sales behind you.
Okay.
For the clients that come to us and when they're looking for, $2,000 to do a prototype or to make do packaging for their product that they're going to sell wholesale somewhere, mm-hmm. We actually have partners within the community that we can refer them to that are very similar to Opportunity Fund, but their programs allow them to provide startup money for entrepreneurs that have only been in business for 0 to 12 months.
Got it.
And so it's very similar to what Dale said was, we know all these people in the community. We have connections to various different organizations and, banks like Alta Alliance that we can refer clients to.
I think that's a very significant thing that you just said there, because what you're telling me is that there are possibilities, there are options for whether a guy or a gal has started a business yesterday,
right.
or whether they've been in business for 10 years and have run on some difficult challenges because of the economy. There are solutions, and it may not necessarily be through one of your options, but you've got the connections into the community that can be explored for possibilities.
Definitely, but I think it's also very important to make sure that people know that there's a difference between someone who has been working in a field very closely related to mm-hmm. what they want to do and someone who's just saying, I've never baked before, but I want to own a bakery.
Right.
You know what I mean? There has to be some kind of logic with what they're choosing to do. So they have to have some kind of experience or, like Mark said, have done the legwork to do mm-hmm. it. We actually had a pilot and I think it was someone who'd worked at a flower shop before. They both came in and they said, we want to own a cafe. And this was before when we were actually working with startup businesses. And we're like, okay, well,
what do you know about having a cafe?
Exactly. And we're like, well, have either of you worked in a cafe? And they surprised us. They did all the homework. The pilot actually put in 6 months working at a cafe. They did the market research, what other cafes are in the area. So they did the legwork.
Oh, okay.
So if we can get behind the entrepreneur, believe in them and believe in what they can do with the loan money for their business, mm-hmm. then we can get behind the loan.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Because you hear the horror stories. You've talked. I talk to a lot of people in my regular life. Okay, and that some of them are business owners, some of them work for businesses. I've been in the sales game for 30 years, right? And you hear these things all the time of people in small companies who are trying to get something done and they just don't know what to do. But I think most of the time, so you all three have hit on this. I think most of the time, what you have is someone who has not done their homework or analyzed things properly, or at least put the information together. It's amazing. You walk into some businesses sometimes and you ask them about some of their finances and they go open a drawer and they pull papers out of a drawer, and they're not even organized in any way, shape, or form. And if you're in that kind of a condition, your chances of being able to get help are significantly limited. Fair statement?
Fair statement.
It is.
Yeah.
But what makes them good entrepreneurs is the passion about what they're doing.
Right.
And it doesn't always correlate with having a business sense.
That's true.
So that's why it's really powerful to have, I think, everyone here, Mark and Happy included, really make a point to get to know their client, what their strengths and their weaknesses are, so that we can help them with that. And that's the difference that I think all of us do. And a lot of times that's lost in a bigger bank. You know, if they can't help them, it's a decline and goodbye.
Right.
I mean, some of my best clients, I've actually declined their loan, but it's because I help them afterwards walk through what they did and where they can improve, and they really appreciate that. It makes all the difference.
I can see how that would. And I think that the group that you were talking about, was it the retired executives? What was it?
Service Corps of
Service
Retired
Corps of
Executives.
retired executives. That makes a lot of sense for people to be thinking about too, because most people get into business because they're really good at the thing that they want to do.
Exactly.
And if you can find someone to consult to you, that's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to be able to put all the pieces of the puzzle together so you can have a sustainable business, so much the better. We're virtually out of time. We have a little over a minute and a half left in our session today. And so I want to thank you guys for being here. I'm going to ask if there are any final thoughts or comments that you might have that you want to share with the viewing audience before we sign off. Happy?
Just that if you are thinking about starting a business or reinvesting in your business, don't lose hope, because there are opportunities out there like us, and we can definitely help.
Fantastic. Mark?
I would just suggest that business owners keep their chin up, and if they don't own real estate yet, that they strongly consider that as a good source of equity in the future. And certainly many of my clients are very thankful now that they bought a property 10 years ago, because it's helping them with their working capital right now.
That makes sense. Dan Marie?
I was going to say hope, the same thing, that there is hope, and getting to, if whatever bank you might be at, that there are personal bankers there, and go and seek a personal banker or talk to the manager of a bank and find out who knows about that sort of lending and that can give you some advice, because all of us here will definitely go the extra mile, and sometimes it's just asking for help.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for being here today. Ladies and gentlemen in the viewing audience, I hope you've learned something from tonight's show, that there is hope, that there's positive possibilities. If you own a business or work in a small business, or you're thinking about getting a business, there are possibilities for you. Don't just say it can't happen for me because you don't have the cash in the bank at the moment. So ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your being out there in the viewing audience, and we'll see you next time on Reference Point.